In 1994, over the course of a year, a series of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers games were released for all major consoles at the time. When these games originally came out, I had only played the SNES version, but later found out that every version of the game is completely different despite having the same name. Rather than comparing and contrasting every version in detail, I'll give you a quick overview of the different versions of the games. The SNES version is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, the Genesis is a fighter, the Game Boy version sucks, the Game Gear version is sort of a fighting game where enemies fly at you from both sides, and lastly the Sega CD version is an FMV game. The version I'm most fond of is the SNES version. As many youngsters in the 1990s, I was a huge Power Ranger fan, and I remember seeing a preview of it in the Nintendo Power, and I just went nuts as a kid waiting for it. After I had leveled up my patience skills, the game finally came out in September of 1994, 4 months after the Genesis version. Was it worth the wait? Sort of. Honestly, I'm kinda glad I never bought this game as a kid because it's one of the easiest games of its generation. Most people shouldn't have any issues beating this game in under 2 to 3 hours. Most of the levels are very similar to an actual episode of Power Rangers. The Putty Patrol jumps the kids kick the Putty Patrol's ass, Rita sends in a boss monster, the kids whip out their belt buckles and proceed to beat the monster. The levels are pretty much this exactly with the exception of the last 2 levels, but I'll get to that later. Before each level, you're able to pick which Power Ranger you want to play as. Each of them have their own attacks in their basic form and in their Power Ranger form. Each character also has a special move that they'll be able to use to clear the screen, but aside from aesthetics, they're pretty much all the same. Most of the Rangers are generally equal with the exception of 2. Trini, the Yellow Ranger, uses a Psy like Raphael from the Ninja Turtles. It has easily the shortest range, however it's not as god-awful as the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES. Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, uses a bow, but she doesn't use it to shoot arrows most of the time. She prefers to just whack fools in the face with the actual bow. This is surprisingly one of the best ranged melee attacks you can do in the game. She can also shoot arrows for a little bit of crowd control as well. Without a doubt, the Pink Ranger has to be the best in the game, which got me thinking, did they intentionally make this Ranger better than the rest because they knew young boys are less likely to pick her than young girls are? It'd be interesting if that was an actual choice made by Natsume. I noticed when you play as Billy, the Blue Ranger, he punches like a bitch when he's not in the Ranger suit. While in the show, Billy was the geekier of the bunch, he still showed himself to be generally formidable in fights. Upon doing more research, I found that David Yost, the actor who played Billy, said that he actually left the show due to homophobic harassment at the workplace. Could Yost's wussy in-game avatar be further poking fun at his sexuality? I hope not. I'd like to think that I'm not inadvertently playing a homophobic game. Overall, the controls and feel of this game are pretty solid, however, platforming and jumping can be kind of janky. When you jump to the left or the right, it always has you jump the exact same distance every time, so when you're trying to jump on a platform that's moving, you can end up dying for no reason. At the same time, this is one of the only challenging things in the game, however, it's only challenging because the controls are flawed. The majority of the bosses can be defeated fairly easily, except for one, the second stage boss. He's this dick that teleports all over the place and you have to hit him before he hits you. This isn't so bad until he hits his second phase, and then he only appears for less than a second, and if you don't have lightning blast reflexes to dodge, much less hit him, you're gonna get killed. After you tear through the first 5 levels, you finally get to the levels that everyone wanted to play. The Megazord levels. You kick the crap out of all of Rita's goons, and now she's all like, "Make my monster!" And you finally get to use the Megazord. The Megazord levels are short and in the style of a fighting game rather than a side-scroller. Unfortunately, this is the worst part of the game. While the rest of the game has fairly solid controls, this part does not. Everything about this feels delayed and unresponsive. The fighting engine is an updated version of the one Bandai used on Ultraman. And if you've never played Ultraman, consider yourself lucky. Beat up some giant-ass monster and kick the ass out of some samurai robot and you've beaten the game. After the ending, it gives you a few passwords that allow you to play Versus Mode if you can find anyone that actually wants to play it with you. Versus Mode is the same clunky Bandai fighting engine that was used in the last 2 levels. But you can play it with 2 people. It really makes me wonder why they didn't just put a Versus button on the main menu, but on the bright side it is only a 4-digit password. Overall, Power Rangers for the SNES is a fairly solid fighting game. It's got great colorful 16-bit graphics, good music, and for the most part it's a pretty fun game. It doesn't have a whole lot of replay value unless you're really into the Versus Mode though. And the prices on Amazon for a used copy are currently about $7 to $25. $7 is fair, but I wouldn't want to pay much more than that. Hey, buddy! Thanks for watching. If you want to check out some more videos, there are more. There's one on Spider-Man, and there's one on Puzzle League / Tetris Attack. They're not bad, I guess. Check them out. Or not. Have a nice day.